Hey, Anand.
Ravi, good to see you. How are you?
Oh, good, Anand. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Just
Okay, good.
looking forward to this.
To the talk, Nitin, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And did you participate in the Trump rally the other day?
No. I watched it on TV, you know. I really did my social distancing there.
Is that poll there?
No, actually, that
No.
one was actually in Macon, where Ramesh Ramaiah lives.
Okay.
So that's where it was being held.
I see Nitin somewhere.
Oh, there he
Oh,
is.
there he is.
Hey,
This is the
Nitin.
Good morning, Nitin.
Yeah.
You got your mute on.
Got a mute button.
Yeah, you got your mute button on.
How about now?
Oh, now you're okay.
Loud and clear.
Okay.
Loud and clear.
Am I looking at the camera now?
You are looking at the camera.
Yes.
Okay.
And you're looking very prim and proper, my dear friend.
Oh, yeah.
This is like midnight for me.
I know you're a late riser. You're a but
Yeah, I had to set like 2 alarm clocks. This is what happens when you're retired.
yeah.
Okay, I guess it's going to take a bit for everybody to log in.
Subha on?
Subha is on somewhere.
Yeah, he's on, but he's muted. So
There
hey,
he is.
Subha, how are
There he
you?
is.
How are you doing?
Hey, Subha. You're muted. There he is. Good morning. Good evening. Subha, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Morning, Nitin. Morning, Ravi.
Subha on?
He's on somewhere. He's on, but he's muted. Hey, Subha, how are you? How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. Prakash, welcome.
Good morning.
Prakash, welcome.
Subha, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yes, I can. Morning, Nitin.
Good morning.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Loud and clear. Loud and clear.
Okay. Prakash, is that you, Prakash Suljapurkar?
Yeah.
Welcome. I saw your latest sketch. Very nice.
Hi. Thank you.
How do you say I'm in the meeting?
Oh, even Paul is up.
Oh,
Hey, Rajendra.
So now you have to mute it again.
Yeah. Okay.
Hey, Paul, can you hear us?
Paul, good morning.
No, I think he's just waiting to.
Okay.
Okay.
So my background disappeared, Subha.
Is that?
I said my background disappeared. I'm not sure what happened.
They want to see Coke in its raw form, you know.
Yeah, I guess.
No false backgrounds. Hey, Rajendra, welcome. You're muted, Raj. Please unmute yourself.
Hey, Paul, how are you? Unmute. You're muted. You gotta unmute yourself. Unmute yourself.
एक 10 मिनट थोड़े देर लेके लगे थे एक मीटिंग
Paul, unmute. Press on the mute button.
Let me send him a WhatsApp.
Yeah.
So there is this new mandatory procedure on Zoom. We need to admit everybody from a waiting room,
Yep.
or we need to have a passcode. So
Okay, go ahead.
Say hi.
Hi, buddies. How you guys
Hey,
doing?
Paul.
Hey.
Can you hear
Hey,
me?
Paul, how are you?
Hey, Ravi, you my buddy.
Yes. How are you doing?
Good.
Paul,
Okay.
good morning.
Nothing much.
Good morning,
So
Paul.
I'm waiting for Nitin's talk. See,
I hope you got rum and coke in
see
your hand.
from me, Ravi, from me and you,
Yes.
Coke,
Yes.
Coke has been the best thing for us in our life.
Yes, that is right. It opened the universe for us, right? Paul, you and I, remember the scouting trip we always talk about?
Yep.
Paul,
What?
where's the rum and coke in your hand?
I mean, under the weather, I maybe have a ramen coke a little bit later on. I've been under the weather for a few days, Okay.
Okay. Everything okay, Paul? Everything feeling okay?
Yep. Mm.
Okay.
Yeah, we were supposed to meet for dinner tonight, actually, but he's under the weather.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Nitin, I'm
Uh-huh.
looking for your talk,
Yeah, I hope it lives up
So,
to your
who
expectations.
who the guys? Who the guy is?
Anand and Ravi are on.
I'm here, I'm here.
Where's Anand?
I'm right
The
here,
rascal?
right,
With the
I'm-
rascal.
right here.
Anand, smirk his smile, you rascal.
Raskala.
I'm trying to get P. Krishna onto. He's
Yeah,
been
he says he hasn't received your
Yeah.
email.
funny. I sent it on his WhatsApp, so I'm,
Well, plus Subbarao, I thought, sent it to everybody.
yeah. Anyway,
it's also being live streamed on YouTube. Got the link on WhatsApp.
Okay.
You can forward that, Anand, in case
yeah, I'll do that.
watch
Okay.
it on YouTube.
Yeah, and Subba, Ramesh Ramaya requested once it's recorded to send a link. So if you send me the link, I can send him the link.
Yeah, that costs $1,000 if they don't show up.
Yeah.
Guys should better show up, man. It's after all Nitin speaking. He's our classmate.
Yeah, I know, but apparently he's working this morning.
Yeah, he has an appointment. he said.
Yeah,
No,
so-
I always suspected he didn't like Nagarjuna, The Vijayanagar guys, Yeah, sure. I'll send the link. The YouTube link will be sent. Yeah.
Yeah. If you can just send it through the WhatsApp thing, so I can just WhatsApp him, because I don't think I have his email address.
Sure. No problem. I'll do that.
Okay, sure.
So this is a little tedious. I need to admit each one, and my co-host, former colleague, he had to drop out at the last minute. Oh, there's Krishna.
Where is Krishna? Say something, Krishna.
There he is. Krishna, you need to unmute yourself.
Namaskaram, Subbarao Garu, Namaskaram, Dr. Sharma from Chennai chapter.
Okay,
Namaskaram,
Krishna is on
Dean.
now.
Welcome.
Thank you, sir. First time I'm attending. Glad to see all of you. Thank you.
Yeah, you can see my father, I think, Mr. Venkateswara Rao. You can see his picture in the white.
Yes, I'm very eager to see. Yeah, thank you.
Good morning to all of you. This is Krishna here. I think some of you are meeting after 49 years.
Yes.
Great.
Hi,
How are you
Krishna.
doing?
Hi, Krishna.
thank
How are
you.
you?
Fine.
Where you're in DC
Welcome to
area,
the
right?
meeting.
Yes, absolutely. I think we should have a separate Zoom meeting for HPS 71.
Yes, there is.
Yeah, we normally have it like once a month towards the end of the month. So
Okay.
you
Okay,
will
I'll attend the
certainly.
next one.
Okay, definitely. Subha generally organizes it, and we would love to have you part of it too.
Thank you. It's
What
great
part
to
of
catch
DC
up
are
with
you
you
in?
guys.
What
Pardon?
part of DC are you in?
We are in Fairfax, Virginia, just across the river in Virginia.
Oh, yeah, yeah. No, I have a lot of friends in Fairfax. In fact, I visit there every now and then. So
Absolutely. Next time you are coming, let us know.
absolutely.
We should, like you guys say, have a drink.
Yes. Well, several.
Yes, several.
I've been trained by Ravi and Paul. You can't just have one drink.
Mr. Narayanan KR, can you please stop sharing your screen? I think you accidentally hit share screen. Yeah, thank you.
Sir, I am from Chennai chapter.
Welcome, welcome.
We just wanted to see how things are happening there at your end also.
Yeah, right now, we had terrible rains the last few days, and coincidentally, it started raining again about 15 minutes ago.
Yeah.
So I'm just hoping that we will not have any power or internet issues during the session. Let's hope for that.
Yeah.
And
And Subha, you have done a remarkable job with, you had sent all those photographs of all the rescue work, the food, etc. And I have to congratulate you on that.
actually, that credit goes to my Freemasons lodges. We did it from. Hey guys, there's a surprise, and even to me, one of our teachers has just joined in.
Oh.
Kamala Jagannathan, can you switch on your camera, please? She's, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere in, there's Mrs. Kamala Jagannathan.
Mr. Subrao, I want to see, where is your camera?
Well, let me switch it on.
I was just looking for you because I don't know.
Yeah, that's me in a blue checked shirt.
Oh, how are you, Mr. Subrao?
Very good. Very nice to see you. It's a big treat for all of us, students from HPS.
Yes.
Obviously, you can't recognize many of us.
Yes.
But Mrs. Kamala Jagannathan retired. Oh, no, actually not retired. She quit and moved to the US, I think about 10 years ago.
20 years ago, yes.
About 10 years ago.
20 years.
20 years. Wow, okay. She taught my kids, at Begumpet. Very happy to have you. How is Mr. Jagannathan?
Oh, he's right here. He's fine. He's also working on some auditing part-time. We're not totally retired. We still continue to teach here. And I know now how wonderful it was teaching in HPS.
Right.
Because,
in HPS.
Yeah. So I can see the difference between the students in HPS and here.
Oh,
yes.
That is a significant difference, right?
And I would love to come back and teach again if I can. Yeah.
Fortunately, we have become more Americanized, I think, in HPS also. So the students very different, but yeah, nice to have you back.
Okay, I just wanted to know what's going on here.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. And I like to see your daughter on the Facebook. Lovely.
Thank you.
She's doing great.
Yeah, she's unfortunately working today, so I don't think she can join us. Which part of the US are you now in, Mrs. Jagannathan?
I'm in Maryland, which is close to Washington, D.C., 30 miles from Washington, D.C.
Kaustubh just moved to Maryland from New Jersey. My son, Kaustubh.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I'll tell him to connect with you. He's in.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Okay. He lives in Bel Air, but he is working in Aberdeen.
Okay, Bel Air is close to Baltimore.
Right, yeah. We have several of HPS guys here. I don't know if you recognize their Atlanta. Today's speaker is from Atlanta, Nitin. And Dr. Ravi Ramaswamy, Texila. I think you were housemaster for Texila. He is in Florida now.
Okay. I was I can see all the names here.
Right. Welcome, Rajaram Garu.
Namaskar, Wendy. Nice to see you and see Ravi Ram seems to have put on a lot of weight.
Oh, you are only seeing his head. Come on, Rajaram. How can you do?
It's like the Schengen photograph. Schengen visa photo requires only head.
Welcome, Dr. Ravi Rao. You're muted, so Rajaram can't hear you.
Oh, why?
He is muted.
All right.
Saying something.
Hey, Raja. Hi, Subbu. Nice to join this group.
Subhagaru.
Yes.
I wanted to tell Mr. Nitin Dalvi that I am a die-hard Coke fan.
Okay.
I don't drink Pepsi. I don't drink Thumbs Up, even if given free, even if crates are delivered home. Only Coke.
Professor Rajaram, you have made his day today.
Yes.
He will be delighted.
Oh my God, this is fantastic. Damn.
Do you know that I was the saddest man, Nitin Dalvi sir, I was the saddest man in 1977 when you went away from India.
Yes, well, I'm glad we brought it back.
Yeah, I'm glad too.
Hey, welcome, Narasimha. We are joined by another classmate.
Hey,
he just retired as professor from Indian Institute of Science.
Where is Narasim? I can't see him.
He is listed as D.N. Rao.
Narasim, get your mute off so we can hear you.
You're muted, Narasim.
Unmute yourself, Narasim. There you go.
Yeah, he's on.
All right.
Yeah, can you hear us?
Yes, very much. Very clear.
Wonderful.
Wonderful.
Ravi, Paul, Anand.
Hey, Krishna.
And Krishna.
Hi, how are you?
Surviving.
Well, at least we see your daughter here once in a while.
Oh, that's good.
Narasim?
Yes.
Tenant is absconding?
Huh?
I understand your tenant is absconding?
Yes. Where is she?
She's in Pondicherry.
All right. Okay. All right. When is she coming back to Bangalore?
Probably in December.
Okay. All right.
Because she's coming back for Diwali.
Oh, that's good. That's
and
good.
Then she'll, after Diwali, then she'll come back to Bangalore.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful.
Tim, I want you to meet another alum of IISc. That's Dr. Ravi Rao. Ravi, when did you pass out of Indian Institute of Science?
Long time back, 1971. From
We just finished
microbiology
ISc.
and pharmacology.
Okay.
1971 you passed out. Wow. So, yeah, I passed out in 77. 82. I joined in 77 and passed out in 82.
Yeah, we may not have met each other, yes. But
Right.
I was in the Dr. JV, but I was his student.
Okay.
Microbiology and pharmacology.
Right. I know of him, and yes, very much.
Hey guys, welcome Gangaraju. Gangaraju has just joined. Hi, Ganga.
Hey,
Hi.
Ganga.
Right.
How are you?
Sheshu is also there, Subha.
You're muted. Ganga, unmute yourself.
Oh, Seshu has come. I didn't see him.
He's also there.
Hey, Seshu. Welcome.
Yes, Seshu.
Camera for a bit.
Hi, I've been on for quite some time, Subha.
Sorry, I didn't notice. Sorry about that.
No problem. I've just been silent.
Because so some of you may remember Dr. Seshu Babu, he gave us a beautiful talk on pandemic, history of pandemics. He is joining us from Cambodia. What time, Seshu?
It's 7:20.
Not too bad.
Yeah.
Very good.
7:20 p.m. Yeah.
So
Lovely country, Dr. Sesh Babu. We visited the Angkor Wat.
What is that backlighting and all that?
Yeah, the lighting is at the back.
Very dramatic backlighting, Paul, like some mafia don.
I know. Rajendra, why don't you turn the other side? If you're on your phone, just turn towards the light and sit. Rajendra, can you hear us?
Rajendra.
Yeah.
Can you hear?
Yeah.
Turn the other side.
Gangaraju, see, that's the ultimate thing. Gangaraju came. That's it.
Subhagaru, one question from me.
Yeah, please.
See, FOSWL started at Cupertino in California, and that's the same headquarters of Apple, right?
Yes.
Any correction?
No, that's right.
But no connection.
No connection. No. There's no connection. I heard correction. Sorry. No connection, but I'm sure a lot of, maybe some of the kids of FOSWL members work in Apple there. I'm not. Umagaru, have you joined us?
Yes. Namaste.
Namaste,
Welcome, Umaji. Welcome, Umaji.
Thank you. Namaste.
Mrs. Uma Seshadri is the convener of FOSWL Cupertino, now stuck in India. There was a question from one of the attendees saying, any of our FOSWL members work in Apple?
No, most of them are above, they're retired people from India who have settled there.
Oh, sorry, I rephrased the question. They're children, children of any FOSWL.
Oh, yeah, many.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. Chandru, welcome. Chandru is a classmate from RB College of Engineering, my alma mater, and he retired as a GM in Indian Oil Corporation.
Oh, right.
Is Bhaskar joining us?
No.
Okay. Too bad, he's going to miss out on the Coke.
Subbarao Garu, one small thing. Dr. Sarma is available here. He is president of Chennai Anna Nagar chapter. Dr.
We met already. We already met. We greeted each other.
First time attending your meeting. I'm very happy to see the people participating. I'm very happy. Excellent. Thank you.
Namaste, Sharma Garu. PLN Sharma.
Oh, yeah. Hello, Sharma Garu.
Thank you.
Sharma Garu, you are very active in Cupertino also. I get a lot of feedback from people there.
I said thank you very much.
I hope it's all positive.
Very positive.
I hope
Your talks were very much appreciated. I get feedback. I have only one question for you. When do you go to bed? When you sleep? You are awake here in the day and night. You are awake.
Yeah. I am participating in Palo Alto, Tri-Valley also.
Okay.
So sometimes the time clashes.
I see.
When I have to give a presentation for Cupertino or Palo Alto, it will be night 12:30, 1 o'clock by the time I sleep.
That's why I'm asking.
And for Tri-Valley, I have to get up at 4:30. So it's but anyway, that is keeping me very much occupied.
Yeah. I had very good feedback about your last lecture you gave on
engineering marvels. Marvels.
No, about
mega
some
factories.
place. You had Tamil Nadu, was it? What was the state?
I covered Andhra as well as
Andhra Pradesh.
Telangana also.
Yeah, they said it was very good.
I'll be covering Himachal maybe after 3-4 months. I get returned later. Yeah. So many are there. Like
very good, very good.
That's what I'm telling you. That is keeping me occupied even this COVID time.
Very good.
Fully occupied. Yes.
Let me welcome Air Commodore Dr. S. Arora, head of Apollo Life. Hey, HPS guys, some of you may remember Kumaran. He was in our office, but he must have been looking very different. He is listed here as Kumaran Ponmuleri. You can see him there. Picture. When did he join Kumaran? During Mr. Kurula Jacob's time? You are muted. You are muted.
Sir, 1985.
85, much after we left. Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Good to see you here. A lot of HPS guys, so I just thought I should mention about you. He is with the society now. He helped me a lot when I was on the board, and especially when I was chairman of the works committee. It was a tough time, and Kumaran was all help during that time. He was running the project office. Sushil is joining us from, where is he? Can't see him yet.
Who's Sushil Bhavnani?
Yeah, Sushil Bhavnani.
Auburn, Alabama.
Alabama.
Hey, Sushil, unmute yourself.
Hey, Subbu, good morning.
Hey,
Good morning.
Sushil, how are you?
Good to see you, man.
Sorry, I had to wake you up that early.
Look
you're
who's
early
talking.
And that too only Coke, no rum also.
You have to have both.
We'll start in a few minutes. So Ravi, just an alert for you. It's 3 more minutes. We'll start at 6 o'clock.
All right.
I see some people have joined on YouTube. I think they find that more convenient.
Whatever the poll.
Yeah, I don't see. Ryan is there.
Oh, yeah.
There.
Arey, you're
Got
always
this dramatic backlighting.
He's like the rising sun, you know, with that light.
Yeah.
He's more like the eclipse blocking the sun.
He wants to be in one of your movies, Ganga.
Yeah, yeah. He's Ganga. He's showing you the backlighting. You know, the special camera angles. You know, he's just giving you some suggestions there.
Hi, Ravi. Hi.
Hi, how are you? How are you doing? Good.
Hey,
Good to see
Narsan,
you.
how's retirement treating you?
Very well, very well. I keep myself busy going to the lab again. I have one student who's still to complete. So,
Are you guys able to see the share screening? My slides?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Can you put it on full screen?
I thought I put it on. It's not there. It's not full screen yet.
Not on full screen yet.
Huh.
No, it's like with all the tabs and all.
Okay, now it's coming.
Wait about it.
Mahdi? Mahdi is not coming on, you know, for the meeting, huh?
Right here.
It's not coming to meet him, huh?
What do you mean? You're in there.
Yeah, we can see him.
Oh, okay.
Okay, may I request all of you to please mute yourself unless you are speaking. It's 6 o'clock, so welcome everybody. I will.
Can we get the screen?
Okay. I will continue to admit folks as they join, but let's begin on time. As I said, it's raining here, so there is a possibility that, you know, we may be out of power, or just give me a minute. I have to admit 4 guys who are waiting. This is a administrative chore. I need to fan out to somebody else. Anand, next time I may seek your help. Okay. So I just wanted to give a heads up that we will have a small quiz, a poll rather, just before maybe after the speaker ends his talk and before the question hour starts. As you know, we had decided that we will not have physical meetings of FOSWL till this December. So we would like to get your opinion of the folks who are attending, when you think we should commence those physical meetings. And apart from that, you'll have a small fun quiz during the talk too. So may I now request Dr. Ravi Ramaswamy to read out the prayer before we start the meeting. Ravi?
Yes. Where the mind is without fear and the head is held high, where the knowledge is free, where the world has not been broken up into fragments by narrow domestic walls, where the words come out from the depth of truth, where tireless striving stretches its arms towards perfection, where the clear stream of reason has not lost its way into the dreary desert sand of dead habit, where the mind is led forward by thee into ever-widening thought and action, into that heaven of freedom, my Father, let my country awake.
Thank you, Ravi. Just for you folks, those who are joining us for the first time, each of our monthly meetings is an endowment to pay homage and to celebrate the life of someone who's passed through life on this earth. This month, this is to remember, the endowment is to remember Sri Telikapalli Subbaramaya and Srimati Kamalamma and Dr. G.R. Dalvi and Srimati Ratanji Dalvi. As you can make out from the names, Mr. and Mrs. Dr. and Mrs. Dalvi are parents of our distinguished speaker today. Mr. Subbaramaya and Mrs. Kamalamma and Dr. Dalvi and Mrs. Dalvi, they represent two entirely different periods. Mr. Subbaramaya lived in the colonial times in the hinterland in what was then the largest district of the erstwhile combined Andhra Pradesh. And even in those days, being in charge of several villages under his administrative control, he was a pioneer in promoting education, bus service to villages, and postal services. This may sound mundane today, but remember, this was way back in the 1920s and 30s. What happened as a result is that the village near Nellore, where he hails from, has produced several well-educated folks, and they're all over the world. And one of them is our member, Dr. Subbaya, who's in right now near Detroit. So we have dedicated the October meeting in memory of Sri Telikapalli Subbaramaya and Srimati Kamalamma. And we are also celebrating the life and work of Dr. Dalvi and Mrs. Dalvi. He was an economist, educator, and he was a pioneer in the field of management education and economic development in India. He started his life as a principal in Siddharth College, Bombay, and then he was a fellow of the Bombay University. And his Hyderabad connection, and that is how we know Nitin, his son, was when he was Director of Studies at ASCI, Administrative Staff College of India. And he was on the Board of Governors as a member of the Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad, Calcutta, and Bangalore. He was also the fellow of the Asian Productivity Organization. And he was well known in the National Productivity Council and All India Management Association fora, which he used to address quite frequently. He is an MA in economics from Gokhale Institute of Politics and Economics, and a PhD from the London School of Economics and Political Science, UK. He is an elected fellow of ICAME, Stanford Business School, USA. He and Mrs. Ratanji Dalvi, while bringing up their kids, have also done yeoman work in ensuring that they have given to this world very enlightened citizens. So we are also celebrating their life and work. Nitin is the son of these proud parents. So with that, I'd like to invite another classmate of ours, Anand, Mr. Anand Halbe, to formally introduce the distinguished speaker for today. Anand?
Yeah. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is my privilege this evening to introduce the distinguished speaker for the day, Mr. Nitin Dalvi. Privileged because I've had the pleasure of knowing him since the age of 10. We went to school together at the Hyderabad Public School in Begumpet. When we were discussing how to introduce the speaker to the audience, Nitin, true to his personality, wanted me to underplay his background. But for a guy who has played a lead trumpet in the school band, was band captain, and actually showed signs of becoming the next Fred Astaire, he was adept at Russian tap dancing, which he demonstrated on a competitive stage in school, along with Subbarao, if I might add. I felt giving you the bigger image of the speaker would set the stage for an interesting evening. Tap dancing unfortunately took a backstage as his professional life was consumed by a successful career with Coca-Cola, which spanned about 32 years, spent in Atlanta and across the world. Being the consummate marketeer with a foundation in marketing research, consumer marketing, strategy, planning, and innovation, Nitin looks back particularly at his years spent in India and Thailand with a great deal of pride and satisfaction. After all, it isn't often that an organization gives you the opportunity to be a part of a small team to restart a business virtually from scratch, as against taking up a baton and running in what is now becoming one of the top marketplaces for Coca-Cola in the world. Nitin was a part of the team that restarted the Coke business in India in 1992. You will no doubt hear about that from him directly. Nitin was Vice President Strategy and Planning in Coca-Cola India before returning to the company headquartered in Atlanta. He retired from Coke in 2015 and he lives in Atlanta now with his wife Monica. He holds a BSc degree from Ferguson College in Pune, an MS from the University of Rhode Island, and an MBA from the prestigious Carnegie Mellon University. He has varied and deep interests in military aviation, geopolitics, ancient Indian history, archaeology, and if that is not enough, is a confirmed foodie. So without further ado, let me hand the stage over to Nitin.
Nitin, the stage is yours.
Okay. Good morning to those in US and good evening to those in India. It's indeed a privilege for me to be part of this talk with you. I want to thank Anand for the kind intro. All I can say is I'm glad I did not become a professional tap dancer. I don't think I would have made much of a living there. I want to thank Subba and FOSWL for this opportunity. I got informed about FOSWL a few months ago and really found it to be a fascinating organization and was very interested in the kinds of things they were doing, the topics they were discussing with people all over the world. And knowing Subba for all these years, especially in school, it was indeed a pleasure to participate in some of those talks. So the fact that I'm speaking today, I'm very honored and proud. So I'm going to take you today on a short journey with the story of Coca-Cola and its namesake company, the Coca-Cola Company. And I'm going to divide it into three parts, sort of the distant past, the recent past, last 20, 30 years, and the future. So I want to emphasize this is not a sales job about the company and its brands, even though I spent 32 years with them. Fascinating company, fascinating people, a brand that really, the namesake is really a global icon. You go anywhere in the world, people know about it. But I want to give you simply a factual history and talk a little bit about my experiences with the company all over the world. So I thought, well, what would be a good way to start? And as I was developing this presentation, I came up across this part of really what I would call folklore, which is supposedly Coca-Cola is the second most recognized world in the world behind OK. I don't know how true that is in today's age of Apple, Google, and so on, but it's certainly up there with, you go any corner of the world, and people who have traveled all over the world, like many members of this group, the chances are you will find Coca-Cola there. The question is really, how did this happen? I mean, there are many other brands there, that are as strong, powerful, that are global brands, but somehow Coca-Cola seems to be a notch above. And what we'll talk about today is a little bit about at least my insights about how this will happen. How did this happen? So the story really starts, so I'm going to split up, like I said, in three parts. I'm going to talk a little bit about the history. How is it that this small company in Atlanta, Georgia, go from being this little company to a global icon? What is in the DNA of this company and its people that helps it manage different challenges globally? So when you think about it, well, 135 years, so Coke's been through 2 world wars, innumerable local wars, revolutions, changes in government, and as we speak, pandemics. And actually yesterday, I was listening in on a call where the head of Coca-Cola in Mexico was talking about how they're dealing with the pandemic. So it's a very real-time kind of, and I'll give you some idea later on as to how they're dealing with it. And it talks a lot about the DNA, about how the company is managing. I'll talk about Coca-Cola in India, something that's near and dear to me. It was launched originally in '51, but it re-entered in 1993. And I was fortunate to be part of the small team that was sent from Atlanta to go relaunch our business in India. So we'll talk about that a little bit. And finally, as obviously companies looking for the next 100 years, how is it reorienting itself, if you will, for the future? So broadly, that's sort of the outline of the presentation. The middle two parts is what I'm calling sort of the recent past, what's in the DNA, which is still very much present, and Coca-Cola in India, and then go into the future. So fair warning to all of those, there is some homework. I'm not going to let you off that easy. Here is what I'd like you to do. So as I'm talking through, I'd like you to think of any special Coke moments in your life. This could be your first Coke, Coke with your friends and family, Coke at special occasions in your life. Just write down 2, 3, 4, 5 sentences and send them to the host through Zoom chat. And then hopefully, if time permits, the host can read out a few of the best ones and maybe even call upon some of you to read those out. So think about that as I'm going through the presentation. Maybe it brings back some memories. So the story really starts off with this man. And who was he? His name was John Pemberton. And he was a chemist by profession in a small town near Atlanta called Columbus, Georgia. And being a chemist in those days was sort of like being a compounder in India in the sense that you mixed a lot of herbal concoctions and syrups and so on and tried to market and sell them as best as you could. Well, what happened was, for those of you who may be aware, in the 1860s, there was a civil war between the northern states and the southern states. And John Pemberton, being from the South, fought for the southern states. And in the process, he was wounded. He was slashed with a saber, a sword. And in those days, the only painkiller that was available was morphine. And so he was administered morphine. And the problem was morphine, as I understand it, it can be very addictive. So war ended, he came to Atlanta, set up business, and he kept looking for some alternative to morphine for his addiction. So being a chemist, he used to play with various concoctions and compounds and herbal extracts and so on. And one day he hit upon a formula that he thought tasted pretty good. And he discussed this with his bookkeeper by name of Frank Robinson, who really came up with this name called Coca-Cola. And how did he do that? Well, the compound that he came up with at that time contained extracts of cocoa leaves and extracts from cola nuts. So Mr. Robinson basically married the two together and Coca-Cola was born. And this was in 1886. Well, the next step was to try and sell this concoction. So in those days, so they went to a nearby pharmacy called Jacob's Pharmacy. And in those days, pharmacies on the ground floor had what they called a soda fountain, which looked a little bit like this. So think of it as sort of the Starbucks of its time, where people would go in, they would have all these syrups and concoctions. And basically the soda fountain, as the name suggests, would mix it with aerated water, carbonated water, and the consumer would drink that and sort of go on their way. So pretty much sort of like what happens with Starbucks today. So this continued for a number of years. In 1888, Mr. Pemberton passed away, but before he did, he passed on the recipe, the formula, and the rights to his son. And his son was not a great businessman. As Mr. Pemberton, he was a chemist, he wasn't a businessman. But there was a gentleman by the name of Mr. Candler, Asa Candler. And now he was an astute businessman, and he bought the rights, the property, the trademark, and the formula from Mr. Pemberton and his son. And he basically put together a group of investors, and they started marketing Coca-Cola. And as they started expanding, they said, soda fountains are good, but if we really want to expand, we need to put this in a bottle. So they came up with the idea that let's run a national competition and see if we can come up with a bottle design that is so unique that everybody would recognize it. In fact, the design brief for that was one line. It said it should be a bottle that is recognizable in the dark. So they ran this national competition, and a designer with the Root Glass Company in Indiana looked to nature for inspiration and came up with this design. It was based on the cocoa bean, and it went through a couple of iterations to make sure it ran on the production line and so on. And finally, it ended up with the contour bottle that everybody recognizes around the world. And I believe it may be the only package that's ever been patented. So having bottled this really expanded into a variety, it went from being a small local brand to a regional brand to a national brand. So that basically, around that time, the family of Mr. Woodruff bought out Mr. Candler, who by then had become the mayor of Atlanta and had sort of stepped back from day-to-day duties. Now, the man who really took Coke to be a global icon was this man by name of Robert Woodruff. He joined the company as CEO in 1923. And basically, he was a dynamic visionary. As early as 1926, he established the foreign sales department. So imagine that, you're in the 1920s, not many brands, not many companies are really thinking of being global and being foreign. And he aggressively promoted global expansion. And what really turbocharged it, in a sense, was World War II, where he promised General Eisenhower, who was the supreme commander of the Allied forces, that wherever the American soldier is fighting, I will make sure Coca-Cola is available to him for 5 cents. And in order to do that, he established these portable bottling plants that he sent all over Europe, all over Asia, wherever the American soldier was fighting. He knew at some time the war would end, and at that time, Coke would be established in all these markets. So this really sort of turbocharged the whole enterprise. And he had a saying, which is still etched in the walls in the company headquarters, which is that the world belongs to the discontented. And that was his way of saying is, don't rest on your laurels, keep pushing. And that's something that the company, as we will see, has tried to live up to that promise and be discontented in a constructive way, not just sort of shake things up, but shake things up so that things are better. And I'll talk a little bit as we get into some of the details as to how the company keeps learning, keeps reinventing itself, keeps innovating as we go along. So I thought I'd share with you some of the old, in those days, there was no mass media, no TV. The only sort of mass media was print and to some extent outdoor. So here are some of the early ads that they used to run in the print magazines and in store and on outdoor billboards. Sort of the first overseas markets sort of predate Mr. Woodruff in that they were in the neighboring markets of Canada and Cuba. By the time Mr. Woodruff took over, like I said, he started expanding aggressively. By the 20s, they had actually launched in places like Burma and China. In Burma, for example, they got in as early as 1927. And by the time 50s rolled around, Coke was available in really 100 plus markets. So it was already, in a sense, a global icon at the time. In India, they got in 1950s, and we're going to talk a little bit more in detail about India later on. Then the 70s, by the time 60s rolled around, Coke had pretty much become a global icon. It was part of the popular culture. It was consumed by presidents, by revolutionaries, by global pop music groups. So it didn't matter who you were, everybody enjoyed a Coke. And one of the famous artists at the time by name of Andy Warhol said, it doesn't matter if you're the president of the United States or you're the common man in the street, it's the same Coke giving you the same experience at the same price. So that was sort of, it became, like I said, really a part of the global popular culture. Then the late 60s and 70s rolled around, and the Vietnam War was raging over in Vietnam. Many of the American soldiers, especially young people, were fighting there. There was a lot of discontent in the US. It was sort of feeling of pessimism, why are we fighting there and so on. And around that time, Coke thought, let's get a group of young people from all over the world together and let's make an ad. So this became, over time, a famous ad called the Hilltop that I would like to share with you. So this, in a sense, was sort of the first global TV ad. By then, TV had penetrated, obviously not to the extent it is today, but had started to penetrate many of the markets, so it sort of made sense. Can everybody hear this?
Yes.
I like to teach the world to sing. Sing with me. Perfect harmony. Perfect harmony. I like to buy the world a Coke and keep it company. That's the real thing. I like to teach the world to sing. Perfect harmony. And I'd like to buy the world a Coke and keep it company. It's the real thing. What the world wants today is the real thing. What the world wants today is the real thing.
So some of you may remember this ad. It became very popular in its time. and is still regarded as one of the best ads ever made. So now let's dive into sort of the guts of the presentation, the brief that Subha gave me, which was what is in the Coke DNA that enables it to sort of manage these challenges, different challenges globally. And broadly, I would characterize sort of the strategy as think global, act local. And I'll talk about what that means. It really has, and again, this is to my mind, based on my 30 odd years with the company, really has two components. One is a deep knowledge and insights about the society and the consumers that they operate in. And we'll go a little bit in detail in that in a second. And the second component is it doesn't do you much good if you understand the society, you understand the consumer, but you're not available. So the second component is really what Mr. Woodruff called being within an arm's reach of desire. Anytime you feel thirsty, you're there. And that has really enabled us to be in sort of every nook and corner of the world. And what really makes it powerful was when you combine these two. And how do you do that? And that's what we'll talk about. So let's talk about think global, act local in action. As I said, the first step is connecting with the local society and local consumer and understanding their belief systems, their mindsets, what are some of the macro trends at work, what are consumer passions, what do they really care about? And of course, being a beverage company, what are their liquid refreshment needs? Now, as you can imagine, this generates a lot of data, qualitative, quantitative, anthropological, social, etc. The challenge is, how do you turn all this data into insights? So one way to think about this is to say, if data is a whole mass of dots in a space, you're really looking for patterns that you can then connect the dots and turn into insights. And of course, you need the framework to do that. Now, once you have those insights, you have to convert that into actionable strategies based on those insights. So it doesn't help to have insights that are, well, it's nice to know, but I don't know what to do with it. You need insights that are actionable. So you have to be able to develop strategies then around marketing, packaging. As you go into the emerging markets, pricing becomes very critical. And then finally, you have to put all that into action so that you have very specific market initiatives. And what I want to emphasize is that this is not a one-time you do it and you're done. This is an ongoing exercise. So every new generation of leadership, either at the global level, at the local level, is constantly engaged in this kind of activity. And what that means is really being agile. You have to be adaptive. You have to be constantly learning, constantly innovating through wars, through revolutions, through pandemics. Just yesterday, I was listening in on a call that the head of Coca-Cola in Mexico was talking about it, who happens to be, by the way, a lady from Turkey. And I'll talk about the diversity as one of the strengths of the company in a second. And what she was saying is, in Mexico, there's about 1 million small, what I would call mom and pop, sort of the Kirana shops. And they have been the hardest hit with this pandemic because they are not really geared up for, e-commerce and disinfectants and all this kind of stuff. And they are a key part of the economy. So Coke partnered actually with competition and with government. And they started helping all these small stores under an initiative called My Store Open, My Store Safe. And that meant providing microcredit, providing disinfectants, also helping Coke with their digital needs. Many of these didn't understand e-commerce, for example. As you know, in the pandemics, a lot of people staying at home are just ordering groceries and so on through their smartphones and their laptops. So unless a store is geared up for that, it really doesn't work. So Coke has been helping that. So it was fascinating to listen to how a key market like Mexico is really handling this pandemic in real time as we are talking. And a former head of Coke International said, what this pandemic has exposed, in a sense, it's sort of like the virus itself, how it has exposed people with weak immune systems and really hit them hard. And people who had strong immune systems were still hit, but not as hard. And he sort of drew a parallel between that and companies. He said companies that are well run, well capitalized, and are agile will still be hit, but not as hard as those who are simply not prepared for something like a pandemic. So it was very interesting to get their insights. And a lot of those come from the DNA that I'm talking about here. So let's dive into two specific examples that I was fortunate enough to be personally involved in. The first one was Thailand. And Thailand, for those of you who have been there, is really a mix of local, Indian, Chinese traditions and customs. And I got there on assignment in the mid-90s at a time when Thailand was sort of, they constantly go through these coups and revolutions and so on, which tend to be peaceful for most part. So as I started looking into the country, the society, the consumer, there were a couple of bedrock things that you needed to understand. The first was that it was a pretty homogeneous country. 90+% of the country is Buddhist. So there's a lot of emphasis on harmony, non-confrontation, etc. In fact, when I got there, I was told a story by one of the locals. I don't know how true that is. Based on the non-confrontation aspect, when Coke and Pepsi salesmen got to a certain street, rather than compete fiercely, they would say, well, you take right side of the street, I'll take left side of the street, and everybody's happy. I don't know how true that is, but I can believe it based on this emphasis on harmony. The second is the respect for monarchy, at least at the time. It may be changing today. So here's an example of a Thai boxer who had just won the gold medal in one of the Olympics. Now, normally you would find that people immediately drape themselves in the flag of that country. But before he did that, he lifted a portrait of his king at the time. And that was his way of showing to the world the respect that he and the Thai people had for the monarchy. That king has passed on now. His son is the king, and I'm not sure the same respect may be there. In fact, I think there is a lot of turmoil going on right now. But you need to really understand that. And the third was this concept of nationalistic pride. They claim that they're the only country in Southeast Asia never to have been colonized by the West. While I was there, there was this whole economic downturn in all of South Asia based on a balance of payments problem. A lot of people lost their jobs, they lost their apartments and their condos and so on. And as I was talking to consumers, their mindset was basically coming out of Buddhism, I guess, said, as long as there are fish in the water and rice in the fields, we will be fine. So many of the people just went back to their villages and sort of lived off the land till the crisis had passed. So all that leads to a mindset, which is around, don't get too worked up. There's a sense of what they call sanuk, which is fun, pretty laid back culture, fun-loving people. I talked about some of the Indian customs. They have a festival called Songkran, which is really our Sankranti holy festival. A lot of colored water is thrown. And of course, companies like Coke actively participate in sponsoring that. So that was an example of you need to understand some of the societal drivers and then dive into the mindset. So let's talk a little bit about the second part, which is being within arm's reach of desire. So it doesn't do you much good, as I was saying, if you understand the society drivers, the consumer mindset and passions, if the product's not available. So over the decades, as you can imagine, the company has built an extensive network. So if you're near the pyramids, there's a kiosk. If you're in the remote mountains in Thailand and Cambodia and so on, Coke is being delivered to these remote villages, often on elephant back, horseback, you name it. Or you're in a push cart in India or in Vietnam, or in the big trucks in the developed markets. And that's all very well. And this is something sort of the bricks and mortar that has been built up over the decades. But what the pandemic has shown, excuse me, is that a lot of people are staying at home. So all this doesn't do you much good if the consumer is staying at home. And then there are a lot of them now are being, especially the younger generation, are ordering things over the internet. So e-commerce has taken off in a big way. So Coke and other companies being agile have started reorienting their business model to make sure that they're also getting heavily involved in e-commerce. So what they're saying is we're going to go, we won't lose all this bricks and mortar arm's reach of desire, but we'll combine that with what they call clicks reach of desire. You have an app, you click on the brand that you want, and your neighborhood kirana shop or your local grocery store will deliver it to you. And this is happening as we speak, pretty much in many parts of the world. So I think of clicks reach of desire as sort of the model for the 21st century. Again, we won't walk away from all the bricks and mortar, but it'll be combined and supplemented and augmented by the clicks reach of desire. So to do all that, as you can imagine, there's a vast, vast system. And I want to emphasize the company, the parent company really focuses at the top. They focus on making the concentrate, they focus on innovation, on marketing, advertising. They essentially ship the concentrate to bottlers. Now, these bottlers are independent entities. Many of them are local entrepreneurs. Some of them are local publicly traded companies and so on. So there's about 225 of them globally, having about 900 plants. And the bottlers are the ones who are really responsible for distributing the product to the stores. So these 225 bottlers basically serve about 30 million retail outlets across the globe, serving about 2 billion servings a day. So extensive system that's been built up over the decades. And this helps really being within arm's reach of desire. Now let's talk about the secret ingredient. A lot of people say, well, it's the formula, the 7X and so on, the secret ingredient. But my experience has been the secret ingredient is really the people, and more specifically, the diversity of people. To give you a personal example, when I joined the company, my first boss, and this is in the early 80s, my first boss was a woman. Her boss was a Korean gentleman. And as I moved through the ranks and as I moved through various countries, I've had 4 women bosses, American boss, Indian boss, Norwegian boss, Hispanic boss. And what's been fascinating to me is each one of them has contributed to my growth, intellectual growth, professional growth in some way or the other. I looked to each one of them and said, what can I learn from these people? Because obviously they're doing something right. And to me, that's really the secret ingredient is it's a veritable United Nations of people. I work with literally with people from all around the world, all very smart, very passionate, very driven. And to me, that's really sort of the heart of the company. So with that, let's get into the story of Coke in India. So I gave you an example of Thailand, and I'll talk a little bit about the story of Coke in India. And it's a story in 3 chapters. One, I would say, post-war or Indian independence, Coke got in there in the early 50s. Business grew very well. I think Pepsi may have got in the 50s as well, but they left shortly thereafter. And by mid-77 or thereabouts, the government of the day said, we want all the multinationals to dilute their equity below 50%. And many of the multinationals were reluctant to do that and left the country. That included Coke, IBM, I believe Procter & Gamble, and a couple of others. New government, 1993 rolls around, new government, they want to liberalize, open up the economy to foreign multinationals. I was fortunate enough to be part of a small team of about 4 or 5 people that was selected from our Coke headquarters to go relaunch our business in India. So for about 15 years, there was no Coke available officially in India. So I'll talk about that as a personal experience since I was very close to it. And then we'll talk about the business today. So the early years, Coke started with a company called Pure Drinks out of New Delhi, and then slowly expanded nationally. And the question, we talked about connecting with the local consumer. There was no TV at the time. There was no mass media. The only media that was available of mass entertainment was really print and movies. So Coke latched onto that pretty early on. And you can see, for example, Raj Kapoor Nargis. As I was researching this, I found there was an even movie made called Miss Coca-Cola in 1955 with Shami Kapoor and Geeta Bali. And then they moved into print in the 60s and 70s and tried to connect with the consumer. So when we entered India, I went there in late 1992 and started looking at the market. Now, many of the team that went there, 4 or 5 of us were from India originally, but were working for the company in various parts. One gentleman was an American, and one gentleman was from Kenya, but of Indian origin. So that was sort of the team. And I don't need to be telling you this, but we realized that India is big, it is diverse. There's diversity of language, culture, you name it. And I really like this quote from Shashi Tharoor, which says, the only singular thing about India is that you can always speak of it in the plural, which sort of captures the essence of India in a sense. The other part was, as we found out, that the operating environment is complex. The game of snakes and ladders that many of us have played sort of fits, at the time at least, fitted that very well, where you think you have everything done and all the T's crossed and the I's dotted, and somebody comes along and said, oh no, you need this one more permit and one more FPO and so on. So, but you realize that, okay, that's the environment. You need to be persistent, and you need to be, as the saying goes, you need to be lage raho. You just have to keep at it because that's the way it is. And as we approached the market, we said, let's look at the state of the market. There was a lot of turmoil in the sense that the local brands and the local companies were very apprehensive about all these big multinationals coming in. There was something called the Bombay Club that they said, they're going to come and they're going to kill all these local brands and we're going to go out of business and so on. So our approach was one of extreme humility. We're here to learn. We're here for the long term. We're here to invest. We're here basically to do the right thing for the country and for our business. So the state of the market when we got there, the state of the beverage market, soft drink market, was that when we left in 77, the Parlay company had some very strong brands called Thumbs Up, Limca, Gold Spot, and so on. And they had a pretty extensive network of about 50 plus bottlers. And over time, they had done well. They had about 60% market share, but they were not reinvesting in the business. The business was being used more, I would say, as a cash cow rather than sort of investing and growing the business. There was not a lot of emphasis on innovation. So we said, we're going to focus on innovation and let's just focus on doing the right thing for the long term. So the first emphasis was essentially on quality. Variety of measures. Our first bottler was really, we had them build a brand new plant from scratch. We said the plant you have does not meet our standards. Rather than refurbish it, just build a new one. So that happened to be outside of, Agra, a place called Hathras, which has unfortunately gotten a bad rep in these days. And the second thing was that we focused on distribution and imagery. So whether it was the trucks, whether it was the salesmen with their uniforms, the three-wheelers, a lot of innovations in the marketplace, but the overriding mantra was that everything communicates. You can't talk about quality and then have a dirty bottle or a dirty truck or a dirty salesman. That just doesn't work. Everything communicates to the consumer. So we said, all right, this is obviously a very complex market. Let's focus on, if we want to connect with the local consumer, we really need to understand their common passions because we can't try to be everything to everybody. So let's focus on what are the common consumer passions. So what had changed from the 50s and 60s was around the 90s, mass media had really started going into TV. While I was there, actually, we negotiated a deal with MTV, which wanted to enter the country. And that was obviously aimed at our core target audience of young people. So things like fragmented mass media had started where you could target messages to different groups of people. You started having regional TV and so on. So we could then focus on connecting with the local consumer in a very, very tangible way. So we identified at the time, and it has grown since then, 3 consumer passions, and I'll talk in detail about each one of them. The first one was cricket. Now, cricket obviously has been a passion for a while, but what makes it different was when you have mass media, you have a way to connect with these audiences in a way that wasn't possible in the 50s. So over the years, Coke has become very tight with cricket, whether it's sponsoring the ICC World Cup, sponsoring players and so on, being available at the stadiums and so on. It is such a deep consumer passion, and IPL has actually just turbocharged that passion, as is obviously obvious to people who are watching IPL today. So here is an ad on cricket that is a fairly recent ad. And some of these ads, by the way, were ones I could pull down from YouTube. So I apologize for the quality of some of those. Some are good, some are not so good, but hopefully you can enjoy those.
तापमान 42 डिग्री, सर पर टोपी नहीं, पैरों में चप्पल नहीं, फौज के लिए चिल्लर नहीं, जमीन पर घास नहीं, बैट पर रबर नहीं, आंखों पर गॉगल नहीं, पवेलियन पर छत नहीं, तापमान 42 डिग्री और खुशी में कोई कमी नहीं। ये खेल नहीं, इस जमीन की सच्ची खुशी है। खेलते रहो, खुश रहो।
The second passion we identified was Bollywood and over time regional cinema. And as I was researching for this presentation, I found actually placement in cinema goes all the way back to 55. As I said, at the time, that was sort of the only mass entertainment. So Shri 420 was a famous movie with Raj Kapoor. And as I was looking at the picture, I noticed that, well, Coke had already placed itself there. So they had latched on to connecting with the consumer even back then. And then movies with Aishwarya Rai and Tal and so on. And now we've gotten into the regional, Telugu movies, Tamil movies, Bengali movies, and so on. Because again, that's a big consumer passion. So I'd like to share with you 2 ads, one for Coke and one for Thumbs Up, as to how we're using movie stars to really activate some of our brands. So here's one with Amir Khan and Coke. I think it's about 10, 15 years old, but it was quite a good ad for its time.
टायर पंक्चर हो गया मिर्जा, 10 मिनट लगेंगे।
कितनी प्यास लग रही है? हाँ यार। चल उधर पूछते हैं। उससे पूछते ना, कोल्ड ड्रिंक मिलेगा क्या? हाँ हाँ, कोल्ड ड्रिंक क्यों? इसको भी पूछते ना, इडियट। Excuse me, excuse me.
ओए मैं क्या सोनियो मखनो, ये गन्ने दे खेत विच टमाटर कितो?
वो एक्चुअली प्यास लगी थी।
अजी प्यास दी की गल है, जदों मोरनी आ गई है खेता विच ता बिन बादल बरसात करा दे, नदियां नहरा सा बैठे ही मंगा दे, हुक्म करो जी।
नहीं बस ठंडा पानी।
ठीक है ठंडा, तो है लो। ओ ठंडा पीने दे बहाने आई, ओ कुड़ी ठंडा पीने दे बहाने आई, ते यारा दा टशन देख लो, ते यारा दा टशन देख लो। अरे जी!
This is great too.
ओ जी यारा दा टशन।
So at the time, I think Amir Khan made a bunch of such vignettes that became quite popular with people from different regions and so on. And let me talk a little bit about Thumbs Up. When we got there, Thumbs Up was really our competitor. And we approached the market that we have two competitors, Thumbs Up and Pepsi. But over time, the bottlers of Thumbs Up started saying basically we want to be with Coke, and over time we ended up acquiring those Thumbs Up, acquiring the brands of the Parley company, which were Thumbs Up, Limca, Gold Spot, Mazza, Rimzim, and so on. And that immediately gave us 60+% market share and a distribution system of 50+ bottlers. A lot of people were very concerned that we are being the Coca-Cola company, we're going to kill Thumbs Up. And we had both internal as well as with entities like the Bombay Club saying, well, if it's a good, strong brand, why would we want to kill it? And if it connects with the consumer and is profitable, that's all we care. So over time, we have actually nurtured Thumbs Up. I can say that Thumbs Up today is still the #1 brand. It has grown, I think, by 20, 30 times what it was when we acquired it back in the 90s. And it has a very strong positioning, as those of you in India may be aware, around Taste the Thunder, or what we call Tufani Thanda. And again, they use movie stars to really promote it, but it was a different kind. It was sort of the action hero. So here's an example with Salman Khan.
आखिरी थम्स अप खत्म, मैं कुछ और लाती हूँ।
कुछ और? वो क्या होता है, my love? जो तूफानी होते हैं, वो कुछ और का मतलब नहीं समझते। हम तूफानी होते ही हैं, लड़ियों से। रास्ते में चाहे कितनी भी रुकावटें आए, दुनिया चाहे इधर की उधर हो जाए, कुछ और का तो ऑप्शन ही नहीं है हमारी लाइफ में। चाहे वो थम्स अप हो या कुछ और।
Obviously over the top, but it fits in with the whole action hero, thunder positioning of Thumbs Up. The third consumer passion that we started to connect, and now it's gotten even deeper, is around festivals. So when you think about festivals, it's sort of tailor-made. It's around celebration. It's around getting together with family and friends. It's about having a good time. So again, and given the diversity of India, there's basically a festival, I think, almost every week, if not every day. So again, we have latched on to that with Diwali, Holi, Eid, Christmas, you name it. And again, used movie stars and other personalities. So here's a short example of that.
ओए, फैमिली मिस कर रहा है मतलब? हम तेरी फैमिली से कम है क्या? हाँ? फैमिली हो तो फैमिली से रेंट नहीं लेना चाहिए ना अंकल?
So interestingly enough, from the time I joined Coke in Atlanta in the early 80s, this was sort of the state of affairs in India. And around the time I retired, roughly 2015, India had grown leaps and bounds. And I thought these two pictures captured that growth very well. And as the company looks to the future, obviously, India is going to be one of the key markets. Here are some of the projections, even after the pandemic, it's certainly going to be one of the top 4 or 5 markets in terms of the being a global economic power. So with that in mind, the company has invested heavily since 1993. I was looking at some of the industry growth numbers. It has grown anywhere from 30 to 40 times what it was in terms of turnover. Some numbers give it at 40 times, from about $100 million to about $4.4 billion. It employs, as an industry, over 150,000 people. And it's clearly one of the top 5 global markets in the world for Coke. And that will only continue to rise. It may well become top 3 or so in the next 10 years. So with that, as we look to the future, again, in terms of connecting with the consumer, basically the company will go wherever the consumer is interested. So as the consumer moves to other beverages, the company will make sure. So, historically, it's always been sort of what we call sparkling soft drinks or aerated soft drinks. This number would have been greater than 90%, I'd say, as recently as 10, 20 years ago. So question is, well, where is the rest of the growth coming from? It's coming from all these other brands in some categories that didn't even exist as recently as 10 years ago. So for example, in places like US, they're actually got into milk with a brand called Fairlife, which was acquired, I think, in the last couple of years. Very profitable brands. So if you imagine milk as a category, it's considered sort of a ho-hum generic category, but this brand and the investment the company's put behind it has become a very profitable brand. There's a brand called Zico, which is coconut water, fruit juices, waters, coffees, teas, energy drinks, and so on. So the strategy for the future is what they call beverages for life. So if you want a Coke, of course, we are there with Coke, but if you want other beverages, we'll be happy to provide those other beverages to you. And now you're getting into sort of the next generation of beverages, which are actually, some of them promise, which company hasn't gotten into yet, promise, help around brain health and skin health and so on in markets like Japan. So company will be keeping an eye on that. So we'll see where things turn out. But it will no longer be just sort of one brand or a few brand company. It's going to be a very diverse portfolio of brands. So roughly globally, they have 500 odd brands. And in most of these categories, except for the energy, Coke is number one in terms of value share. And in the energy category, it's number two behind Red Bull. And the company today has about 21 brands that are worth about $1 billion. So, and some of these have been grown literally in the last 5 to 10 years. So clearly brand building has become a key part of that. And the DNA that I talked about becomes a key part of that brand building. So as I end my talk, I thought I would mention some trivia about the company that you might find of interest. For the Freemasons of you out there in the audience, might interest you to know that John Pemberton was a Freemason. The modern Olympics, which started in 1896, for about 20 odd years, was sort of run on a non-commercial basis. Then they realized that they really needed to get some funding to sort of make it a global entity. And in 1928, Coke became the first commercial sponsor of the Olympic Games. This was held in Amsterdam in 1928. The third was, you have this image of Santa Claus. There were a variety of images historically all over Europe and all over the US. In the 30s, Coke commissioned a famous artist for his time to come up with an image of Santa Claus. And of course, he came up with this jolly red giant wearing a red suit, with, sort of with this white beard holding a Coke. And that has become sort of a de facto image of Santa Claus today. Might interest some of you to know that in '85, Coke became the first soft drink in space. Some sub-trivia within that, the lead engineer was an Indian gentleman working in the Atlanta engineering department. As you can imagine, having a pressurized container in space has its own challenges, and this gentleman and his team were able to overcome that. So where does that leave us today? So Coke is available in about 200 countries, give or take. And if you were fortunate enough to have invested in one share in the initial public offering of Coke in 1919, that share would be worth about $12 million today with the reinvested dividends. So that brings my talk to a close, but I didn't want to leave you off that easily. We're not done yet. I thought there's one more quiz that I would give you, which is name the 2 countries where Coke is not officially available as of 2020. Needless to say, no using Google, and I'll give you a list of countries that you can choose from. And I believe Subha may have a poll open that you can then send your answers in.
Unfortunately, Nitin, the poll is not working. It says I'm logged in from another device, which I'm not.
I see.
try to figure out. So let's just keep this slide for a few seconds.
Okay.
May I request that you go through the names and just put your choice in the chat box. As Nitin said, of these 10 names listed, which are the 2 countries where Coke is not officially available as of today? We can leave the slide open for a, or please write the names so that it's easy for me to, don't put the serial numbers 3 and 7 somebody said. And make it to everybody so that everybody can see, not just to me. When you're writing in the chat box, select. Honestly, Nitin, I did not know a country called Kiribati existed. I don't know where it is.
This is near
Kiribati.
Somewhere in the deep Pacific, I think.
It's Kiribati.
I see.
It is the first place where the sun rises.
That's correct. That's correct.
I see. Okay.
And one of the islands is Christmas Island. Christmas is the island where it rises first in that country. Kiribati.
Okay.
First after the international date line, I think.
So threatened by global warming, soon to be underwater.
Yes.
I think the answers are still coming in, Nitin. So just let's give a few more seconds.
Yeah, no problem. I hope people are not Googling.
Okay, I think they have stopped now. You can proceed with the next.
So do you want to tell the answers or?
Yeah, you want me to read out? I mean, yeah, just give me a minute here. I mean, they're all over the map, of course, as you can see. Yemen and North Korea, Eritrea and North Korea. North Korea seems to be on everybody's choice. And Air Commodore Aurora says North Korea and Kiribati. Is it? Anand, how do I pronounce that?
Kiribati.
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 Okay, Sudhakar says Cuba and North Korea. And then Cuba and North Korea and Cuba. North Korea and Afghanistan. And from Salem says Kiribati and North Korea. Sushil from Alabama. North Korea and Eritrea.
So
I think Rajendra wants to give an answer. So
yeah, I want to give an answer.
Yeah, but you can't Google. You can't ask your wife.
Yes.
Why are you calling your wife there?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I think those are the combination of answers, Nitin. You want to give the correct?
Yeah. So the correct answer.
Oh wait. Rajendra wants to pitch it.
Okay. No asking your daughter, Rajendra.
I'm cheating, so I don't want. Okay.
Press this to talk.
Yeah. Okay.
What's your answer?
When you're cheating, you should switch off. Mute yourself, Raj. Okay.
The answer again. The key word was officially available, and the 2 countries where it's not officially available are North Korea and Cuba. Maybe it's smuggled in, but it's not officially available because the United States does not have relations with those countries, or those countries have prohibited, whatever the reasons may be. So that's the answer. So with that, I thank you for your time. I hope I didn't use much of the time.
Iran. It's Iran.
Hey, the quiz. Here are the winners, Nitin, who got the correct answers. Ushasri, my wife, I don't know, she's not even in the same room, but she's got it correct. 3
You
and
must have told us about.
And there is Dr. Seshu. Dr. Seshu Babu has got it correct.
Yeah.
Then Dr. Seshu Babu sent in 2 replies, same reply. And Vinita Date. I believe I do not recognize this name. Maybe some other name is there. Vinita Date.
No, she is a friend of ours.
Okay, so she's got it right. North Korea and Cuba. And then V.S. Sudhakar, a brother, he has got it right, Cuba and North Korea. And K.R. Narayanan from FOSWL, Annanagar, Chennai, he has got it right.
Right.
So quite a many. Nitin was proposing to send you a truckload of Coke for all the winners, but not in India when you visit US.
You have to come to Atlanta to get it.
Atlanta, right.
Because freight is not covered, I guess.
Yes. Yeah.
Done with the presentation?
I'm sorry?
Are you done with the presentation?
Yes. So with that, I thank you for your time. I'm happy to answer any questions, and I hope you found it engaging.
Good one. Well done.
Thank you.
Nitin,
stop sharing.
hey, can I say something?
Just hold on a minute, please. We'll just have Nitin stop sharing his screen and then. Okay, there you go. So I'll unmute. Nitin, if you can unmute yourself, please. Before we take on the questions, which you can type in the chat box, we just wanted to ask around, what do you folks think about recommencing the physical meetings of FOSWL? You know, since March, we have been meeting online because of the pandemic and because all the members of FOSWL, over 95%, are above the age of 60. So do you think we should start in January 2021 or April or June, or do you think we should wait further and continue with this? Can you please put in your opinion in the chat box? When should FOSWL recommence its physical meetings? Everyone can answer. And just suggest, should it be from January, April, June, or wait till the situation is more clear? People like Dr. Seshababu tell the world clearly when we can resume our normal lives. Just take a few seconds for everybody to put in your opinion in the polling, in the chat box. And then we'll start taking some questions. Some questions have already come in into the chat box. So please tell us when you think we should start the physical meetings. Nitin, shall I, before that, talk about the My Special Coke moment?
Sure.
Okay. There are a few entries here, and Brother Somashekar Ganti, are you there? He says during his engineering college days, he went on a tour with batchmates to Kathmandu, and the first thing all of them rushed to was to get a Coca-Cola. That was way back in 1981. I guess that's the blackout years.
Right.
Yeah. And of course, my wife, her special moment was, my son is a big Indian football soccer fan. So he used to stay up with late nights to watch this, world matches. So that's when Coke used to keep her awake. And Krishna shares a very special moment when he was walking over a mile to the Blue Nile Falls in Ethiopia. He found these small Ethiopian children walk along with them and offer Coke for 3 birr. I think that's the currency of Ethiopia. This is really enjoying that liquid refreshment, within an arm's reach, like what you said. Within passions, within desire's reach, right? That's what you said, I think. And then Mr. Rajaram from Pune, he was traveling to Bombay to New York in March of 1982. And to quote him verbatim, Coca-Cola was then evicted stupidly by the then government in capital letters. And he hadn't had a Coke since 77. So instead of looking at the hostess who was serving him, he was just happy to grab the Coke from the stewardess, he says. And he says he had the experience. Rajaram, did you hear that? And Air Commodore Aurora, when he was paradropped into Dhaka, when Bangladesh was handing over or surrendering, he carried Coke in his water bottle, he says. Once the signing ceremony was over, he shared it with his companion. That is with the Bangladeshi surrendered guy or Indian Army guy?
No, the Pakistani army surrendered that time to Indian Army. 71 war.
So that was a peace offering to the Pakistani army guy when he was.
Second time I took it in Sri Lanka operation. Third time I took it in Burma inside, deep into the jungles of Burma.
Wow.
Was that mixed with rum or was it just Coke?
In the night we used to mix up with rum.
Why is Coke always in the conflict zone?
Huh?
Why is Coke always in the conflict zone?
Gives you a great cool. Gives you positive thinking what is to be done now.
Can I share my personal experience?
Can you just hold on 1 minute? Let me finish.
Oh, no hurry, no hurry.
Sushil Bhavnani from Alabama, he says, my moment was tasting the various local flavors at the World of Coke. Where was this, Sushil? World of Coke is in Atlanta?
That's right. It's a exhibit in Atlanta, a building that there's some really funky flavors. Maybe Nitin can tell us about that.
Right. Thank you for sharing that. So I don't know if I missed any, but this was someone, I remember Mrs. Indira Narayan, are you online? You had, as a student, you said you used to enjoy Coke. I thought I saw her name. If you're there, can you switch on your microphone and tell us? Okay, maybe she's not there now.
Mr. Sarna wants to say something.
I think I covered those special moments. Now there are some questions. Do you want to take them up now?
I'm happy to. I mean, there's some I can answer, some I may not have the knowledge. So,
like the formula.
Like the formula. Yeah, don't ask me for the formula.
Jayant from Pune, he says, with sugary drinks losing steam, where does Coca-Cola go in the future? I guess you answered in your last slide, but would you like to take that?
Sure. I mean, I think the company, like I said, the company will go wherever the consumer wants us to go. So as the consumer moves into other beverages, I think I showed you that chart. There are categories that didn't exist, 10 years ago, and there's new categories coming up all the time. Especially if you go to markets like Japan, there's a lot of innovation going on constantly, and brands are literally on the shelf for maybe a few months at a time, and then they get rotated out and new brands come in. So it's very important to keep innovating and keeping your pulse on the consumer. So as if the consumer moves towards health-based drinks, company will make sure it's there. The challenge is always, it's sort of like a big super tanker. You can't just turn it on a dime. You have to slowly turn it. And the chart I showed you, 20 years ago, that number on the left would have been greater than 90% of company revenues coming from aerated soft drinks. And today that's already down to about 50-odd%. So, the super tanker is turning. You have to maintain profitability. You have to keep Wall Street happy and so on. But there's no question that Coke will follow the consumer, and also it has to be cognizant of the communities in which it operates, because if the communities don't want it, then obviously it can't do business.
Yeah, Sarmagara, would you like to?
Yeah, in a very short thing, this is my personal experience. Whenever I used to go in my younger days for sort of picnics with our friends, I used to prepare a formula of Coke with rum separately, and take it openly in cocoa bottle and take it openly without any problems. I had a wonderful time at that time. I enjoyed the company. Thank you.
The next question is from Ravi, Florida. So, he's drawing a parallel with Walt Disney, Nitin. When families visit Walt Disney, and generations of families have visited Walt Disney.
Oh.
They think it's a throwback to an age of innocence, when they see the same, the same exhibits, same characters. Everything there is as it was years ago. So it kind of builds a nostalgia in the visitor. Is the The question is the enduring legacy of Coke also an olfactory or gustatory version of the same nostalgia? I think we have a Sashi Tharoor here in Ravi.
Subha, you broke up in the middle. If you can just repeat that.
Yeah, he's asking whether in a similar way, the legacy of Coke is an olfactory or gustatory version of the nostalgia that Walt Disney invokes.
Yeah, and that's an interesting question because, you know, one of the things for people, say of our generation, we go back to my first Coke and the taste and the, you know, opening the bottle and the sound and so on. So there is some truth to that. I'm not sure the younger generation today may feel quite the same way. But definitely amongst our generation, there is that feeling of nostalgia. Interestingly enough, there is a version of Coke called the Mexican Coke sold in the grocery stores here. And a lot of people say that that's really the Coke I remember from my childhood. So, and the main difference is the Mexican one is made from natural cane sugar. The US one is made from corn syrup. It used to be cane sugar, and now it's corn syrup. So a lot of people say, no, I like the Mexican Coke. It's the same Coke taste-wise, but again, there's that feeling that no, natural sugar one, and it's actually sold at a premium in many of the grocery stores.
Okay. Seshu has a question, and it says, how does Coke manage to counter all the AdWords, you know, YouTube and other posts in social media? For example, you know, you put a broken tooth in a glass of Coke and it dissolves. How does Coke manage to counter all this kind of negative?
Right. I mean, some of those you can counter, but obviously when you get into, you can't fight each and every thing that's put out there. So, you know, the company does what it can. Obviously, there's issues around sustainability, our packaging. So I would encourage anybody really interested to go to the company site and look at what they're doing in the sustainability space over the years, and some of which I've seen myself. And in some ways, I think Coke tends to be a little too modest, and this is my personal view now, about its achievements. So for example, it has actually made a plastic bottle from bagasse, from sugarcane plants, that it has started using over the last 8-10 years. And it started off with a plastic bottle made 20% from bagasse, what they call the plant bottle. Now it may be up higher, but the goal is eventually to have a completely natural plastic type bottle. But the company, again, you'll have to go to their site and look into the details. But there's a lot of innovation going on. And the bottom line is simple. If we don't do all those things, you know, the enterprise won't survive in the long term. It's as simple as that. So, and I'm sure they recognize that. In fact, the lady who heads the sustainability for the entire company used to be my boss at one time. So I know exactly the passion and the resources they bring behind that. But we can talk at length offline if there's more.
Some more memorable of the first Coke moments. Dr. Ravi Rao says when he was in the US that, you know, heady combination of Coke and pizza, just like Rao, the Coke and rum business. And of course, Sudhakar VS says, what else can be better than rum and Coke? That seems to be the number one.
Yes.
Right? But here's an interesting, variant of that. Dr. R.S. Sastry, he says he likes the things that go better with Coke, not necessarily the Coke itself, you know. So the accompaniment, when it's all the accompaniments that go with Coke.
I didn't talk about it just because of time constraints, but Coke and food is a big, historically, has been a big sort of initiative as well. You know, you talk about connecting with local consumers, connecting with local cuisines, you know, whether it's Coke with hamburgers or Coke with vada pav, for example, when we went to India. It's a very natural fit because you think spicy food and a cold Coke will go well together. So Absolutely. I mean, Coke and food has been a key part of sort of the marketing for decades.
Right. Seshu shares his experience when he was in Malawi in Africa between 2005 and 8, when he was an advisor to the Ministry of Health. You know, when going on field missions, he and his co-workers often did not have time for lunch or lunch break. So they would just pop out for 5 minutes at any kiosk, buy some biscuits and Coke, and that's all the lunch they had in running from one, health outpost to the other. And he says, never has Coke tasted better in my life than during those years. So I think the next punchline for your ad should be, skip a lunch, the Coke will taste better.
I think Air Commodore has a question.
Right.
Yeah.
You're muted.
I don't understand your question, but I'll read it out for Nitin to take it, or maybe Dr. Arora. There are showing links between artificial coloring and ADHD autism.
Yeah. I'll share it with you, something unique. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
96, we did a work on Coke and other drinks because in Army, we had put restrictions on these things. There was a reason behind it. I'm not supposed to be sharing those, but it's a requirement of the time.
Right.
It is related with autism. If you are drinking more than children 1 bottle per day, okay, 2 bottles adults, then comes a question. If you're diabetic, if you drink Coke, your blood sugar will go up.
Right.
If you're hypertensive, your blood pressure will shoot up. Studies shows people have developed heart problems. Studies shows there are evidences which shows tooth decay is a main and the core issue. So these are some of the diseases which can result into this. There are cases where people got addicted to Coke, 7 to 8 bottles per day. They were become totally, anxiety, hyperreaction. They've gone into panic stage. It has happened. So anything is more is dicey.
I know. Yeah.
If you remain in limitation, everything is good.
Right. Thank you.
Why in Punjab it is said something very uniquely. Patthar hajam, lakkad hajam. Your body is such you can eat all those things, but provided you are in limits.
Right. Thank you.
But I think the company would encourage moderation. I agree with you. Moderation in anything. If you go overboard with any substance, any Coke or whatever else, I think you're bound to run into problems. But it's a question of lifestyle too. Do you maintain a healthy lifestyle, or are you just sitting on the couch watching TV all day as well?
Yeah, there's an interesting add-on to that, Ganga. I'll come to you after this. Sushil Bhavnani, Sushil's father-in-law, Lata's father, apparently was one of the scientists at CFTRI in Mysore. And he was tasked with breaking the code of the secret, the concentrate secret in 1977. So Sushil is wondering whatever happened to the 7 brand that was brought out at the Janata government time. I think it doesn't exist any longer. The 7 cola doesn't exist in India. Am I right, Nitin?
Yeah, I'm not aware of it. I've heard of it. Obviously, it was at a time when we weren't there, so I'm not sure what happened. But at least we didn't see that in the marketplace.
It was around for some time, but I think it disappeared after that.
Like the year, it's history.
Ganga, you want to ask a question?
Yeah. No, about 7, like the year, it's history anyway.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to add to what Nitin said in response to Air Commodore's thing. See, in medicine, there's something called dosage is the poison. So you think sprouts are good for you. You eat 2 kg, you'll die immediately within a couple of hours. Even something healthy, you overdose it, you're dead. So it's just common sense.
Right. Thank you. There's a gentleman, I see your name as, please put your name. Can you identify yourself? I'm not able to see who this is. You say you have asserted that there is no effect on the body, but can you put your name there or switch on your camera so we see you? Just unmute yourself and announce yourself, please. Okay, I don't know. I'm not able to identify. So I think that's about it. We are 7:26, 4 minutes more. We start on time. We'd like to end on time. So unless there are some last question we can take if any of you has.
I think Mrs. Sheshadri had a comment.
Yeah, she was saying that during school days, they used to buy a bottle of Coke and add a pinch of salt and see it froth all over.
Right.
The bottle went empty, you know, and they never consumed it. It was more for like a effervescence, you know, enjoying the effervescence kind of.
Right.
How many of the HPS guys remember this when we went for the NCC camp to Dehu Road, to Ganga's Point? I don't know if you remember this guy called Syed Ali. He had a bet with somebody, and the bet was who would drink the maximum number of Fanta within that 2 or 3 minutes or 4 minutes. This guy consumed, I think, 7 bottles. He just kept it, and he just fell down. And there was chaos on the NCC camp, and all of us were pulled up and all that. This was in 1969, if I remember right. I don't know if Seshu remembers. He was in the army also, right?
What the Air Commodore was saying, you consume way too much, you know, of anything. That's not good.
So I'd like to end, if it's okay with you, Nitin, so to interest.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Nitin. I just want to share some of the comments all of you have seen. By and large, it seems that all of you feel we should continue with the online meetings for some more time. You know, they're varying suggestions, 3 months, 6 months, or wait till the situation is better. But I think the unanimous view is we should not switch to physical meetings immediately. So with that announcement, I'd like to thank our distinguished speaker for today. Thank you so much, Mr. Dalvi. It was a well researched, very well put together presentation. Our secretary had to go off the meeting due to technical issues. So on behalf of FOSWL, thank you very much for accepting our invitation and also spending this evening with us. I must again thank the families of Dr. T.B. Subbiah and Mr. Nitin Dalvi for setting up the endowment in whose memory this October month meetings are held. I must also thank Mr. Vijay Raghavan Endlore and his family for their logistics sponsorship in memory of their his father, Mr. Purushothaman. He was a senior IB officer spanning both the British and Indian era. He was a very popular intelligence bureau officer. Thanks to the Endlore family. And Ravi and Anand, thank you all. Thank you both for pitching in, and for Anand especially for not telling all the interesting things about Nitin from the school days.
Yeah, I'm glad he didn't say that.
I know. So with that, we come to the end of this meeting. Thank you all and good night. Stay safe. Bye-bye.
Thank you.